So, a common issue with Android phones is a lot of Android phones aren't on the latest update. Take this Galaxy S8 here. This S8 is 4 years old, it came out in 2017, and we are stuck on Android 9. And that's an old version of Android. And the question is, should you buy a phone that isn't on the latest update? Because, well, a lot of Android phones aren't on the latest update, and for a lot of users, you get decent hardware, a good Antutu benchmark score, 4 gigs of RAM. It's not a bad smartphone, but is it worth the risk? Well, in terms of the points against, buying a phone without the latest update, eventually your apps will stop working. An Android version might work for a while, but Instagram, Snapchat, they're not going to work forever. And so eventually you will be stuck without the latest update. Updates bring improvements to the phone. If you have, say, a Samsung, you might get a new feature in an update. Dark mode is a good example of this. This is a feature that came via an update. And it means you can use your phone for longer if you have the latest update. For instance, if you have a Google Pixel 1, then you can still be using that phone a few years after it came out. Whereas if you bought a Samsung Galaxy S8, I hope you enjoyed the 2 years that you could have had it for, at best. But you got 2 years of being on the latest update, but what about after that? This is still a perfectly usable phone 4 years later. So why might you consider buying a phone without basically the latest updates? Well, a couple of generations behind, and you will generally have app support. On this S8, I have YouTube, I have Instagram, I have Snapchat, I have Reddit, or in my case, Apollo. I'm running Spotify. Most of the apps that I use, I have the latest software version for, and they work fine, and they perform well. You can use custom software to improve an Android phone without the latest updates. There are lots of options, for instance, Lineage OS, if you want to do this. So, if you have the technical know-how, it is possible to put the newer software on. And newer updates, well, they aren't always designed for older hardware. In the case of an S8, it is a good performer, but take the S3 Mini, I've talked about it on my channel before, it's a very slow phone. Newer updates could render this thing completely unusable, though it is Samsung we're talking about, and TouchWiz was never good. So, should you? I mean, after all, in the case of the S8, things work fine. And the fact of the matter is, it is best to buy phones that are still supported. You can look at Google Pixels. OnePlus phones are often supported for a lot longer. And a newer Samsung phone, well, they tend to go quite cheap on the second-hand market. And your phone might be fine for a couple of years if you don't have the latest software update. But it's not going to stay that way. This Galaxy S8, in 2 years' time, you will run into issues with compatibility. There are certain apps that you have to download an older version of already. And it's only on Android 9. That's not many generations behind. And that problem will only become worse over time. The S3 Mini is completely unusable. YouTube barely functions, and it is in the minority of apps that you can download. So then, what? You just only ever buy the new and expensive? There are options. OnePlus, they support their phones for quite a while. And especially Google Pixels. They're basically supported forever. Well, not Apple supported, but, well, we're talking about Android. So, buy a phone with the latest software update. And if that's not possible, buy one that's going to get the next software update. Samsung phones can take a while, but eventually they do get it. App developers will be developing apps for your phone, or more specifically, for your Android version. And you don't have to worry that, well, in a year's time, your phone's going to be basically unusable. Android does have an issue with software updates. And because Android has an issue with software updates, well, app developers know there's an issue with Android phones. And so they will support their apps on older versions, unlike iOS, which tends to be a bit less. But realistically, buy one with the newest update. You'll have more problems. And if you know how to do something like Lineage OS, if you're aware of how to do the process, and if you chose to buy a computer that you can easily do it on, cough cough, not a Mac, then sure. But don't. It's if you have the know-how. If you're ready to take the risk, then fine. But for most people, it simply isn't worth doing. Because ultimately, the phone will work for a while, but it is a ticking time bomb. And an Android phone with the newer updates will give you the better experience. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.